Time for me since I've been here, so that's wonderful. And also to those who are joining us, tuning in via the live stream. Welcome to all of them as well. I could probably crack a joke or a pun about live streams and being by the water's edge, but I'll let you take that away. I'll leave it at that. So yeah, tonight is all about sharing stories from the water's edge, both through the stories that we've collected to share with you, but also stories from you that we hope you'll share with us this evening. We'll be sharing stories of stewardship from the water's edge through celebrating our OTIS Award winners, and also through a number of short films that speak to the importance of these places by the water's edge and how we can all work together to care for them. But before we start that journey along the water's edge, I wanted to start by acknowledging the lands and waters on which we are gathered tonight. This place, the Battle River Watershed, is located within Treaty 6 territory and includes the traditional lands and territories of many Indigenous people and nations. Their knowledge and wisdom inform and enrich our collective efforts to support the health and resilience of this watershed. And I want to recognize in particular the Musqueam Cree Nations and the significant role that they play in this work. Fulfilling the spirit and intent of the treaties is an ongoing process, and the Battle River Watershed Alliance is committed to building those strong and respectful relationships with the Indigenous people and nations of this place and working together to care for land, water, people, and communities in this place that we share. Just by way of brief introduction, I'm Sarah. If we haven't met before, nice to meet you. Hopefully we have a chance to connect throughout the evening. I'm one of the staff at the Battle River Watershed Alliance. You'll meet a few others of us as the evening progresses. Everybody will probably be up on the stage at some point, except for Sheila, but you can say hey to Sheila at the back. Maybe take a look at our atlases back there and some of the other stuff that we have about the watershed. So yeah, with that, pull up a stump, as it were, here next to the proverbial water's edge. And as we begin to flow through the evening, I invite you now, if you'd like, to take a moment to maybe, if you're comfortable, close your eyes and imagine yourself on the water's edge of one of your most beloved lakes or creeks or rivers, and maybe consider for a moment why that space is meaningful to you. Have you got it? These are the stories that help inform our love and care for these places, and they're worth sharing and celebrating. And that's what tonight is all about. We'll intersperse showing a number of short films with presenting the OTIS Awards, like I said, and then we'll also have a brief intermission somewhere around in the middle there. And kicking off the evening without further ado, we're going to show this first short film, which takes its words from the writings of Roger F., whom many of you will know. It's writings entitled The Measure of a River, from his book, We Are All Truly People. And I don't think we can think of many better words that help us frame the story of the Battle River. So, enjoy.
Western Canada is carved by rivers whose headwaters begin in mountain glaciers, whose reputations have been made by the furs born on them, the cities built beside them, or the distant ports reachable by them. The Battle River can claim none of this. It flows from a small lake in the west central Alberta parkland and eventually into an oversized valley, hollowed in a geological instant, whose broad floor it can only occupy respectfully by means of looping oxbows. The river relies on whatever rain trickles down 1,000 creeks to sustain itself after spring runoff. To look upon the Battle River from the angle of the water itself, from a canoe, is to imagine that you are the first to come this way, having found a secret passage through a familiar place. It is to stop paddling while a deer swims across the river in front of your bow and emerges, thin and muscular, to climb the opposite bank. It is to learn the lie in hardened dichotomies like wild and domesticated, watching coyotes weave through a herd of cattle grazing in the flats, or tracing the eastward spread of maples from the abandoned farm around which evidently they were first planted. It is to hear intimations of an antiquarian quiet. It is to understand why the Cree word for river, sipi, is an animate noun. It is to collect a Chaucer-esque pilgrimage of ducks, shorebirds, even a hawk. It is to be entertained, distracted, by orange-tufted grebes skittering left, right, left across your path, as if on the two-dimensional track of a carnival shooting gallery. It is to accept the leadership of a heron, perhaps several, waiting stick-like around every bend, unfolding angular, prehistoric wings to keep a comfortable distance and lift mockingly over the narrows of an oxbow that will take 20 minutes to paddle. It is to glimpse a heron rookery in the tops of the tallest aspens. It is to wonder at nature's diversity, pockets of spruce, cactus-studded badlands, and, on the sun-facing side, grass, thin as threadbare cloth through which pale brown knees shine. The battle is insignificant by measures that judge a river by where it is going and by its power and sweep in getting there. Its appeal is not linear at all. Like the Jordan, it is a river defined by what it separates and what it joins, by what life it draws to itself and what life it releases.
Well, thank you for that video and the narration, Sarah and Roger. My name is Carson. I'm a new staff member at the Battle River Watershed Alliance, recently returned after having been a summer student in 2018, and I'm really happy to be back. And my job right now is to introduce one of the main parts of our evening, which is the OTIS Awards. Some of you may now be wondering, who or what is OTIS? This is OTIS. The OTIS is the star character of the book Otis and Friends, The Mystery of the Missing Water, which was a book written by 4 high school students in 2012, I think, for our Caring for the Watersheds competition. And since then, OTIS has become a sort of mascot for the Watershed Alliance, and especially for these awards. And we have turned OTIS into an acronym for OuTstanding In Stewardship. I know it doesn't quite make sense, but it's the best we could do. The OTIS Award is a way to recognize individuals, farms and businesses, organizations, and youth in the Battle River and Santa Creek watersheds who are outstanding in stewardship. And stewardship can take many forms of taking action to care for our watershed, including the land, air, water, and biodiversity. It includes healthy communities, our culture and economy, and from now into the future. This year we have 1 winner from each of our 4 categories, as well as a couple extra who have won in past years, but who we never got to present their awards to because of a certain pandemic. So for each winner, we're going to introduce you, say a little bit about you, and then we'll get you to come up on stage, accept your award, and get a little photo op before you go off the stage. With that said, we're going to get right into the presentation of the awards for the individual category. And first up is Lauren Ferguson. Over there. Before moving to Camrose, Lauren was a long-standing member of the Friends of Little Beaver Lake Association, where he lived at the lake. Since moving to Camrose, he's been an active member of the Camerton District Fish and Game Association, and was also treasurer and board director for the Battle River Watershed Alliance. His work with both organizations was instrumental in the creation of the Outdoor Learning Center established at the Camerton District Fish and Game Association site at Pleasure Island. I got to take barbed wire fences out with him as a summer student. And this work of Lauren's has contributed to the Magpie Nature Camp that we've started running at the Pleasure Island site, which is a really great project. Lauren, here you go, and thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Just a note, when we were cleaning up the area around the pond, there was lots of treated telephone poles in the water. And the only way we could get them is we had to send somebody in and get them. Carson was our man.
Thank you, Lauren. And we have one other individual award from 2020. And this is for Dr. Glenn Vinegard, Professor of Nature. And he's also my dad. Dr. Glenn Vinegard has been a professor of environmental studies at the University of Alberta Augustana campus since 1994. It has been said that it is in Glenn's nature to care for nature. I didn't write this, sorry. Glenn has shared his knowledge and passion for the natural world with countless students, inspiring environmental conservation and action for sustainability. Glenn has been a part of many regional, provincial, and international associations, and authored and co-authored numerous research projects and articles. In the community, Glenn actively promotes stewardship as the organizer of the annual Christmas bird count, and through the Camrose Wildlife and Stewardship Society. In this capacity, he supports environmental education and outreach events, and the Camrose Purple Martin Project and annual Purple Martin Festival. Through his numerous professional and volunteer roles, Glenn has proven to be an outstanding steward of nature. Well done.
Carrying on from Lauren's theme, we were planting a nest box in the middle of our pond by our cabin south of Camrose, and just like Lauren described, Carson was our man to swim it out to the middle, drop the lake, and put it.
Guess I just always end up in the water. water, so it's natural I ended up in this job. And now we'll bring Sarah back up to introduce the next part of our evening. Thank you.
All right, so the next 4 videos that will show interspersed with the OTIS Awards being presented as well. The next 4 videos are from our new Riparian video series, and this is officially the world premiere of these videos, and we're so excited to share them with you. I want to give a special shout out to all of the people who volunteered their time to step in front of the camera, no small feat, and be a part of these videos, as well as to the behind the scenes team, especially our incredible video production team, Ben and Sarah, who helped pull it all together. And also a special shout out to Natalie, who led the charge on this project for many months through the ups and downs of trying to make a video series in the midst of a pandemic. And also to all of the committee members who provided their advice, feedback, and support throughout the journey. And the vision for these videos was to share the story of why these places by the water's edge, riparian areas, are so incredibly valuable to the health of our watersheds and, by extension, the health and well-being of ourselves and our communities. This first video begins with a very special guest as well. Part of the goal of the Riparian video series was to celebrate new riparian data that has been collected for now thousands of kilometers of rivers, creeks, and lakes in our watershed here, as well as well beyond in many other watersheds throughout the province, which shows the condition of riparian areas using satellite imagery. Many of you who know us at the BRWA, and in particular who know David, know that we are dreamers. And so when the idea arose, why don't we invite an astronaut to speak to the value of viewing riparian areas from above? This was not just an idle thought. Dreams can become reality. So with that, I hope you enjoy this first video from our new Riparian video series.
Viewing our beautiful blue planet from above was an eye-opening privilege. I still recall my first view of Earth from space. I was aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia about 10 minutes into the flight, and looking out a window I saw the Atlantic Ocean with sunlight shimmering off its blue surface. Beyond the ocean was the curve of the Earth's horizon, and beyond the horizon was a vast expanse of empty black space. The sight sent a chill up my spine, a sight that I have never forgotten. By gazing down on Earth, I gained a deeper appreciation for how all parts of land, water, ocean, and atmosphere are interconnected and interdependent. I better understand today how the choices we make, big or small, can impact the well-being of our planet and all of its people. Preventing further environmental degradation and improving the health of natural ecosystems has become a fervent concern of mine. Riparian zones, the banks and wetland areas near a river, stream, or lake, play a significant role in the natural ecosystems that support the health of people and the planet. These zones include the water-loving vegetation that connects land and water, the vegetation near rivers and lakes that purifies and filters our water, that moderates the effects of floods and droughts, that reduces erosion and supports a wealth of biodiversity. We can learn much more about riparian areas by viewing them from above. Satellite imagery, for instance, reveals the state of habitats over wide expanses, something that is impossible to appreciate solely by standing on the banks of a stream and gazing about. Studying riparian areas across an entire watershed enables us to understand the big picture. Identification of riparian areas under stress becomes possible, and decisions that we make regarding the restoration of the most vulnerable areas become more informed.
Riparian areas are that interface between land and water. They are transition zones or a buffer zone, a last line of defense, essentially, between the actions that we're taking on the land and what is happening in our water.
We have an enormous amount of riparian shoreline in the province of Alberta. Rough estimate of the length of riparian shoreline is about 1.5 million kilometers. And when you put that in the context of the circumference of the Earth, the amount of riparian shoreline that we have in Alberta goes around the Earth approximately 31 times.
A watershed is what captures water from this broader landscape and brings it to a center point like a river or a creek or a lake. So as water is traveling across the landscape, it's picking up nutrients and sediments and contaminants and depositing those into the water body. And so this riparian area is kind of the last stopping place between the landscape and the water bodies.
Riparian areas fit into the larger scheme of environmental management because they provide really important ecosystem services to human communities. So one really important ecosystem service that riparian areas provide are things like water quality improvement. Riparian vegetation is really important for filtering out things like sediments and nutrients. And sediments are really detrimental to aquatic habitats. They can negatively affect fish and fish spawning. And so riparian vegetation does a really good job of filtering out those sediments. Riparian vegetation is also really important from the perspective of mitigating risk associated with flooding.
Watershed management tells us that we can't manage any one aspect of the landscape in isolation. Riparian areas are connected to the lands around them, to the watershed as a whole. And so we need to look at that whole system together to really make sure we're protecting the health of that entire system.
I think having data acts as a catalyst for understanding where we are and where we want to be. Satellite imagery has been a game changer because it lets us see the Earth differently. It gives us a perspective on habitats and vegetation that we don't get when we're on the ground. It would take us a lifetime to measure and assess all of the riparian areas. And now that we have access to satellite imagery, we're now able to look at the condition and the change in condition of things like vegetation at scales as big as river watersheds.
We want people to be able to find their place in the watershed, to look into what riparian health might look like in places that matter to them, and maybe think about what they could do, what actions they could take to help improve or restore riparian areas in those places that matter the most to them.
The view from above enhances our insights. Following spaceflight, I emphasize to one and all that Earth is humanity's precious and only home, the only planet in our system, perhaps in the entire universe, that sustains intelligent life. We must protect it. Let's invest in research and protection of our riparian areas. They play an important role in natural ecosystems and will help sustain the well-being of future generations.
So I am the newest member of the Battle River team, so a very new face to probably almost all of you, because most of you are new faces to me. So my name is Kendra. I'm originally from Saskatchewan. Have worked with some watersheds before, and I'm really excited to be here in the Battle River.
So I am the new education lead, so it's fitting that I present the Youth OTIS Award. So this year it goes to the Round Hill Renaissance Agricultural Foundation. So they started up in 2020 and took a parcel of undeveloped land and turned it into a food forest. The space features a huge community garden and a shelter belt of over 300 different trees, including fruit trees and shrubs. The space is being developed with permaculture principles, using natural water capture and multi-layer growing featuring all edible plants. The space also celebrates and features indigenous traditions of edible plants for food and healing and honoring the land and what it provides for the community. The project enabled the school to remain open as they committed to a strong focus in agriculture. The food forest space features an outdoor classroom and raised beds for students. The community has worked together to grow, plant, and harvest a 7,000 square foot garden. And in the short time since the project began, there have been an increase in enrollment at the school and an interest for families wanting to move to the area. So they helped to create a healthy community through safe and secure food supply. So Nicola and Kyle are going to come up and accept the award. And so for our second riparian video, this one's going to dive a little bit deeper into the riparian areas. This green area where the land meets water, and speaks to the immense value of these areas, as well as the ecological services they provide. It also touches on some of the pressures and challenges. And we hope that it can kind of spur us to be mindful of our collective actions in these places. This knowledge and awareness can help us focus our attention on the steps that we can all take across our watershed to protect these important areas. So, on to video number 2.
Water, it's everything, it's everywhere, you know, and it's a part of our culture, and I'm still learning a lot about it. One of the things that I'm learning over the years, and now that I'm getting older, is that we got to think for our generations ahead, 7 generations ahead, like the people before us.
When I was a child, we swam in the water. It was so clear. The fish were abundant there. You were able to see them on the riverbeds. You could tell it's being contaminated, and it'd be nice to get back to that life form, that clear water.
Our nation, with the boil water advisories, a lot of homes out here face. I know how important it is to our health. We got to protect our water. We got to understand it.
Environmental management is not about managing the environment. The environment is perfectly capable of managing itself. Environmental management is about managing people's impacts on the environment. A watershed is like a giant funnel, and it captures water coming off of the landscape from precipitation or snowfall or rainfall or even groundwater, and it directs it across the landscape and brings it to this central water body, such as a creek or a river or a lake, and eventually actually the oceans. And as it travels across the landscape, it picks up soils and sediments or contaminants or nutrients and brings it to the central water body. So riparian areas are the last stopping point between this upper landscape and this water body.
Riparian areas are that interface between land and water. They are transition zones or a buffer zone, a last line of defense between the actions that we're taking on the land and what is happening in our water. They can be really incredibly diverse places in terms of the life that they support. They also provide a whole range of other ecosystem services. This can be things like filtering and purifying water. It can be things like supporting fish and wildlife habitat, holding soil in place so that we have reduced soil erosion. Capturing and storing that water and releasing it slowly over time. This can be really important in times of both flood as well as drought. Because of our love of water or wanting to make use of land near water, we can encroach on these areas or crowd them out. In our watershed work, we often encourage people to recognize that anywhere that they are in a watershed, and their actions can have an impact on that watershed, for better or worse. If we're removing plants like willows, cattails, other trees and shrubs from these areas, if we have a lot of livestock pressure in an area, that can impact the area by removing vegetation, or just the heavy hoof action of the livestock can tend to compact the soil. Even things like using equipment or vehicles in these sensitive areas can also act to compact that soil. And so it just means it's less able to perform those water capturing and filtering functions.
Sure, it might seem like we have an abundance of water, but we also need to be preventative. We're taking the necessary steps to educate ourselves, and from there we can work together and help educate others and help others succeed in improving their water systems. For us to do our part, to prolong the life of our ecosystem, our watersheds, we need to respect the lands, because water is a life-giving element.
All right, so with that, we are now going to take a 20-minute intermission, so that'll be about 7:55, I believe. There's lots to do during this intermission. So we have the cash bar at the back there. There's also a free help yourself water Saskatoon punch, some tasty treats there, as well as coffee and tea. So yes, please help yourself to that. A few other things. You may have noticed around the walls, we have some watershed wordles that you can access via a QR code. So check your phone to see if you have a QR code scanner, and just kind of, peruse your way around the room. There's 5 in total. You'll maybe have seen the little watershed wordle slips on your table. So if you are able to, whether you win or lose, if you're able to find out the 5 watershed wordles, you can then be entered to win our door prize for the night if you submit that slip at the back there with your name, I think is what the slip requires, just your name. So yeah, have fun with that if that's something you're into. If not, this is a time where you can just visit. It has already been wonderful to visit with the people I have, so yeah, just look forward to more time for that. You may have noticed at the back also there's a board that says share your stories from the water's edge. And so we want to encourage you to do just that. Stories from the water's edge that you've experienced in your life, from the sublime to the ridiculous. For me personally, that might include swimming down Stony Creek after capsizing my kayak, or maybe on the flip side, an incredibly peaceful paddle down an enchanting stretch of the Battle River near the headwaters. So whatever your stories might be, we'd love to hear them. Whether you're just sharing them around your table, that's incredible. If you want to share a story or two on the sheets at the back, that would be amazing as well. So feel free to do that. And yeah, you can post them on the board there. And I think that's all I have to say about that. So enjoy the intermission.
your 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning, so if you'd like to reconvene in the next 2 minutes and then start again. While you're finding your seat again, I'd just like to give out a word of thanks to the staff here at the Bailey for doing such a great job helping us today. Arlo and Hannah in the back, and Simon up in the sound booth. Thank you very much for all the help in supporting this event. The tasty treats that you have had. Trevor, I'm glad I was able to find another Saskatoon tart for you. I'd hate to see you go home sad. But those treats were prepared, the cookies and the treats were prepared by the Bailey Bistro, by Jen and Jared. So we wanted to do everything local and in-house. And if anybody has been following along with Battle River Watershed Alliance for a while, you know we're sort of partial to Saskatoons. So we got a shout-out sort of question for you. And that is, you'll know that before COVID, we did Saskatoon pie events, and we were a champion of the Saskatoon pie. And so we're sitting around this year going, what do we do? Do we bring back Saskatoon pies? Or do we move on to something else like rhubarb crisp or something? Okay, for those people who said, oh, to rhubarb crisp, you got to come out for Frank's on Friday in the springtime, and you will have great rhubarb crisp. But follow our website for that. So, if you think we should sort of kind of bring back some sort of Saskatoon pie event, just shout out. Okay, everybody but the staff was shouting out, so I don't know what that means. So we'll give that some consideration. I think the person shouting out the loudest in the crowd was probably Dave Zimmel, because he's our professional Saskatoon pie judge. Dave, stand up, take a bow. He was wondering if he could judge the Saskatoon tarts tonight. If that meant he could have more than 2. Thank you very much. I'm going to follow along now in the same vein as everybody else. Hi, my name is David, and I've been with the Battle River Watershed Alliance for, oh, forget that part. I'm only going to be here for another 2.5 months. That's easier to say that than to say from the beginning. But my task tonight is a delightful one, in that I get to present the Business OTIS Award winners. The first one we're going to do is this year's award winners, Dan and Harriet Little. Dan and Harriet run their farm with stewardship top of mind. They are ALICE participants. ALICE stands for Alternative Land Use Services, but it's now been shortened to ALICE because we all just know it as ALICE. And Dan is part of the local Wetaskiwin Leduc Partnership Advisory Committee.
They have protected wetlands, they've planted native grasses with future educational opportunities in mind, and have constructed a dugout for cattle watering and to provide habitat. In 2021, Dan encouraged farmers in his area to become ALICE participants and encouraged the project to maintain a grass waterway through the cooperation of landowners and a new land renter. Dan and Harriet operate their farm with an understanding that nature and agriculture are not mutually exclusive, but work best when considered together. Dan and Harriet, thank you very much for all you do for the watershed. Picture, oh yeah. It's sort of a running joke in the office. Whenever Kendra takes my picture, she has to take 2 or 3 and then sort of meld them into one picture that looks sort of kind of good. So I hope you're able to do your magic today. Our second award winner is again caught up in the COVID crisis, and we wanted to present this award during an event, and all the events that Brenda was involved with were like Young Agrarians. Well, they were a Zoom event, and Zoom this and Zoom that, and pretty soon Zoom became a 4-letter word. A good one, maybe. But our next award winner is from a couple of years ago. It's to Brenda Bomer. I first met Brenda several years ago. She was still curling competitively. I was still piping amateurly. And we met at the Camrose Curling Club. You were throwing the first rock, I was piping and trying not to slip on the ice. And I think we both did the job we were there for, so that was great. Since then, I've got to know Brenda. She's farms just north of Balf. But a couple of years ago, she decided to make a change in the way she farmed, because she thought the watershed was, I can't remember the exact words, but sort of fractured, or there was a problem. And she, as the landowner, could do something to change that. So she did. She's worked with people like Cows and Fish, and talked to a lot of people that know stuff. And she's listened very hard. And she's changed the way she farms. And in one stretch of land, the wetland is protected. Where there was one crop growing before, there's now 300. I think you said 300 different species of plants and animals growing in that area. And it's amazing to see people that are able to pull the environment and farming together and make them work. And Brenda, you are one of those special people, so thank you very much for helping the environment. Okay, I exaggerated a little bit. My notes, I wasn't reading my notes. And I said 300.
Yeah.
Well, slight exaggeration.
Yeah.
Just take off the last 0, it's 30.
Still 90.
But another year it'll be 300, maybe. Sorry about that. I get this, that's why I'm only here for another 2.5 months. What are they going to do, fire me? Okay, we're going to now see the third Riparian video. This one values, everybody still awake? Because this one's going to value riparian data. Whether that data is collected via satellite or on-the-ground assessments. The data can serve as a tool to support on-the-ground actions to conserve and restore riparian areas. This video showcases some of the partnerships that are crucial in making this work a reality. Landowners, supportive organizations, municipalities, and many more all have a role to play. Here's the video that tells that story.
Environmental management is really about setting goals, about what it is that you want to leave for the next generation, and then figuring out how you can get there. So in 2016, we started this Riparian Intactness project, which uses satellite data in order to give us this very broad perspective of riparian health throughout the watershed. Satellite technology has really come a long way. Not only does it tell us what's happening on the riparian areas, but it also tells us what's happening in the larger watershed above it. And when you combine those two data sets, it actually helps you understand where your highest priority restoration areas are, and also where your highest priority conservation areas are.
Satellite imagery has really changed the way that biologists and ecologists study landscapes, because it gives us access to much larger areas and areas that we wouldn't be able to measure in the field in a cost-effective way. And so by accessing satellite imagery, it allows us to really effectively and efficiently measure and monitor change in the landscape.
Having this riparian data can help us to better prioritize what actions we might want to take. On the ground assessment work really allows you to see what's actually happening in those places. You're able to see what native and potentially invasive plants might be present, recommend what specific place-based management options might work best in that particular context. Just gives you that sense of what is actually happening on the ground and what actions might best be able to support riparian health in those areas.
Different aspects of these data sets are useful for different groups. In particular, the municipalities all have in-house riparian restoration programs to help incentivize landowners to restore and retain riparian areas, and so we wanted to help them help the landowners.
As a municipality, looking and seeing the intactness of a riparian area throughout the municipality will allow us to make better decisions on development so that we can improve those areas that maybe have been degraded. We can also see the impacts of the degradation when we allow industry into those areas, and if there's a potential for us to bring forward a project to improve that area, that's what we'd like to do.
We're trying to be proactive when it comes to our water systems. What we do is we come together with different organizations and we kind of try and help build a team of people who could just combine minds and see where we're at with our water and see how we can help each other into getting us safe access to drinking water.
Our partnerships are crucial in what we do. It gives us a bigger technical base to work from as we're looking at projects or program planning, whichever level that is. It also really helps to support the producers. We've had a couple of projects where 3 or 4 agencies have gone to the producer. And at first we feel like it might be overwhelming for us all to show up, but they really appreciate having multiple perspectives and multiple groups that are behind them in what they're doing. And so it helps to encourage them, and it also helps to give them more knowledge.
Municipal boundaries are unnatural shapes that sit on sometimes multiple watersheds. It's really important to make sure that we're all on the same team. We're all kind of following the same guidelines, and only then, when we're all working together, will we be able to achieve this common goal.
Hello, it's me again. And I'm here to present the final OTIS Award for the evening. And Sheldon, if you're here, I hope you're here, just stay seated for a moment because this is a very long list of accomplishments that I need to read out first. So the winner of this year's organization award goes to the Wainwright Wildlife Society. The Wainwright Wildlife Society began in 1987 as a group of volunteers from Wainwright and the surrounding communities. Their mandate is to help everyone understand that wildlife and wild places are of great benefit and should be part of everyone's value system. And they have many, many activities to help promote this value. We'll start listing off a few. Society volunteers use a local woodworking shop to construct bluebird house kits that are sold to the public and given to local youth clubs and schools to assemble and place in the country. Bird feeders are constructed and sold in support of the Great Backyard Bird Count. The Society hosts guest speakers and presentations for the community and local schools, including wildlife photography and identification, and on the geological history of the Battle River Valley. The Society encourages the public to participate in local owl surveys and the nationwide Christmas bird count. Wainwright Wildlife Society volunteer guides take school groups from Irma, Wainwright, and Hughenden, as well as birders and photographers from across Canada to witness the amazing sharp-tailed grouse spring dancing every year. They partnered with the Association for Lifelong Living and hosted 3 public grouse symposiums entitled Project Bring Back the Grouse, featuring grouse specialists and status updates on grouse in the Battle River Watershed. The Society also developed sharp-tail and ruffed grouse information cards to recruit help from oil field workers to locate and report bird numbers in the Battle River area. Finally, the Society established and maintains 14 kilometers of recreation trails northeast of Wainwright along the Battle River called the Mistahaya Trail System. These trails for hiking, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, and biking help immerse users in the importance of wild spaces. Everyone here should go visit them and give a round of applause for Sheldon Frissell of the Wainwright Wildlife Society. And that concludes the 2021 OTIS Awards. With that out of the way, yes. Congratulations to all of our winners. And with that out of the way, nominations for the 2022 awards are now open. So if you know someone on a farm, business, or organization, or youth group who is outstanding in stewardship, if you're inspired by some of these people, please let us know and complete the nomination form on our website or get in touch and we'll find out more people who are amazing and we want to share their accomplishments. Thank you for doing that. Now we're going to get on to our final riparian video. And this one ties in very nicely with our OTIS Awards because it is recognizing the work that some landowners in our watershed have done to protect their riparian areas, some of whom are here tonight, and we'll try not to embarrass them too much with the video. Enjoy.
I've always been a little bit of an environmentalist. We know that we need to be good stewards of the land. We know the benefits of allowing riparian to grow back. I just feel a moral responsibility to help take care of the environment. I love being out on the farm. I've got 3 young daughters that I just want to show them the importance of taking care and being a good steward of the land and the benefits that it can have from that. On this particular quarter, we had quite a large area where we had constant runoff, and so it was very much a moist area that needed some attention. You just let nature take its course and go from there, and it's amazing the things you learn with that. We've left it. We have just this spring planted 30 trees at the far end of this project, and we'll see how that goes, but I guess that'll be an interesting experiment too, to see if what comes back in nature opposed to what we're putting there ourselves.
The word that best describes having this incredible riparian zone in our landscape is anti-fragile. It allows us to be resilient no matter what happens from a climatic perspective, because we've got water stored, we've got trees growing, we've got biodiversity. It's just such an amazing resource to have access to, and so it would be silly for us to not partner with it. This area down here, if properly managed, if properly grazed, respecting the riparian zone at specific times of the year, is going to provide insurance from a grazing perspective should we end up in a really big drought. The operative word is that you have to manage the system at the right time of the year. If you come in at the wrong time, it's going to end up creating a whole bunch of problems. And so the value in having this kind of water harvesting feature on the property provides me with the ability, again, to pump water up to the top of my hill. It provides drought-free forage at certain times of the year, if required, because we're in the middle of a drought. And so ultimately, I think this is only going to be putting dollars into my pocket and creating resilience with regards to how we choose to manage livestock on this particular property.
In a lot of ways, we always see ourselves as the top of the food chain, humans, and then everything else is below us. But I feel like riparian areas are a great example of how it's an interconnected web, of that we're not actually up here, and all the beings and all the living things and all the working systems go together to support each other. And another reason is it's a small way of showing that pay it forward. Like, I love how in Indigenous cultures they say it's about, like, you're planting 7 generations. And I feel like that is something as a parent and as a human, and I see humans as being caregivers of the land that we get to live on, that is part of the paying it forward, that's part of, like, leaving it better. When we started this project, there was a lot of money to do all the fencing that we were going to do, and it's page wire because we do sheep, so that's also more expensive. So Growing Forward and Alice helped contribute to pay, which meant that we paid 1/3. And then for 4 years we did where Alice technically kind of leases the land and uses it, so we got paid annually for that land to be left as ecological services. To me, it's like a win-win-win, because we're getting more hay off, the soil's better for our animals, they're getting more feedings off of it. The groundwater is what we drink and our neighbors drink, so then it's also a service to everyone else as well.
Minimizing cattle activity in these riparian areas helps protect the vegetation and the stream banks. So with an off-site watering system like this, there's solar panels, a tank, a pump in the stream, and a box with a bunch of batteries that recharge the system. And it's all set with a float in the tank, so when cattle come to drink and lower the water, the pump turns on and fills the tank up again. The cattle can get to some of these wet areas, but they don't ever really go there because the water is an easy access to the tank, and they just come here and water and go back to grazing somewhere else.
When land management doesn't happen in an ecological sense, we all end up paying for it. I want to showcase how to create regenerative farming systems that partner with ecosystems like this, with beavers, with all the wildlife in the area, in such a way that we create climate resilience, that we create food security in the future.
It's wonderful, and like I said, the stuff you learn. And I would like to touch on a little bit with the mental health part of it, because that's very important to me. It just really allows you to get out with nature, think about other things, and see how beautiful and how scenic this type of thing is.
that wraps up the first 4 out of 5 of the Riparian videos in that series. The 5th one we won't show tonight, but it's all about the online Riparian web portal. We'll be posting that video on our YouTube channel in a bit, so you can stay tuned for that, and you'll also be able to view all of these videos there in the near future as well. Before I introduce the final video of the evening, I just wanted to put one last call in for Watershed Wordles. If you filled in your slip, I would say at this point, even if you partially filled in your slip, maybe just toss it in the bin back there. Get entered to win our door prize. It's a pretty sweet gift that we'd love to give to somebody. So yes, get that in the near future, because we'll be giving out the door prize as we wrap up the evening here very shortly. So we wanted to close out the evening by featuring the work of some of our watershed neighbors and esteemed partners in this work of caring for land, water, and communities here in the Battle River watershed. Samson Cree Nation, and in particular their NIPI, or Water Committee, have been instrumental in bringing people together to address some of the challenges they face when it comes to water. They cast a wide net in looking at drinking water, wastewater, the health of the Battle River, and the health of the community as a whole. They've also got some, what I think the NIPI committee might jokingly call deadly videographers in the making in their community, who helped put together this video that we're about to watch that shares a glimpse of the work of the NIPI committee and Samson Cree Nation. So we're grateful to consider them partners and also friends in this work, and to share this video with you tonight. Hope you enjoy.
Spring, summer, fall, winter. I live in one of the most beautiful places in Canada, Samson Cree Nation.
This is Treaty 6 territory. It's located along the Battle River watershed. It's a region with some of the best soil for agriculture in Alberta.
For those of you who don't know where Musquecheese is, that's an hour south of Edmonton.
Let's tell them how many people live here and how big this community really is.
There's 9,000 thirsty natives.
The infrastructure currently upholding our water systems is aging and is in dire need of upgrades. Water shortages, changing weather patterns, and overall ecosystem changes will be key challenges for current and future generations.
The pesticides and fertilizers from the surrounding agriculture is affecting our medicines and hunting grounds, which can potentially affect our water supply.
We need to build capacity for our growing community to keep them healthy. Hey, check out some of your Mountain Dew.
It's not Mountain Dew, it's Mountain Doo-Doo.
We seek to empower our nation and its peoples, and to uphold our treaty and inherent rights. Everyone deserves access to clean, drinkable water. We are mobilizing as a team to be able to tell our stories, to tell Nipsikopaks Nipi at Jimawin.
We're developing a process to address our challenges together, building a team. Many people from different capacities pulling in the same direction. Our nation members, as well as our neighbors, working together as stewards, as partners.
We grew up watching the Jetsons and Back to the Future. By year 2020, we thought we'd have flying cars and hoverboards, but now we don't even have clean drinking water.
Now, how do we solve this problem? Empower and educate. We as a community need to come together and focus all our attention on protecting water, for this generation and for future generations.
So, I can't believe it, but that brings this evening to a close. I just wanted to give another shout out to all of our OTIS Award winners and video stars who were able to join us tonight, or who maybe were tuning in on the live stream, or even those who might be tuning in later when we can hopefully post the live stream video on our YouTube channel. So thank you to every single one of you for coming, and those special guests that we're honoring tonight as well. So yes, we hope it has inspired you to consider what you can do to help care for land and water in the places that matter most to you. And we hope also that you'll get out and explore more of these places along the water's edge, so that collectively we can all come to know and love and care for these places that contribute so much to the health and well-being of ourselves, our communities, and this watershed that we share. So I think Kendra may be almost ready to give away our door prize. So we'll let her come up here and we'll do that.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. This is another thing that randomly came up in our office one day when we were realizing half of us do Wordles. And so I thought, what if we did a watershed Wordle? And I found out you can make your own online. So it was just kind of a fun thing. So I hope, it looks like we have a decent amount of them. So I'm hoping that means that you guys enjoyed it. Okay, I was like, I had to remember what they were anyways, but I think this looks like it's right. So I pulled out John Olson.
Yes, feel free to have a few more tasty treats, some of that Saskatoon punch. Stay and visit, or if you're heading on your way, well, whenever you're heading on your way, safe travels, and thank you so much again for joining us for this evening by the water's edge.